You failed. Again. The project didn't work out. The business didn't take off. The goal you've been chasing for months or years still feels impossibly far away. You're exhausted, discouraged, starting to wonder if you're just delusional for continuing to try. Everyone around you has opinions. Maybe it's time to be realistic. You've given it a good shot. There's no shame in moving on. They mean well. They're trying to protect you from more disappointment. But something inside you refuses to accept their logic. You can't quit. Not because you're irrational or stubborn, but because something in your psychology won't allow you to abandon this goal, even when it would be easier, even when it would be more comfortable, even when everyone else would understand if you gave up. You've watched other people start similar journeys and quit within months. You've seen them rationalize their exit. It wasn't meant to be. I have other priorities. I'm being smart about my time and energy. And maybe they are. Maybe they're making reasonable decisions based on evidence. But you can't do it. You can't walk away. You keep showing up. Keep trying new approaches. Keep pushing through failures that would have stopped most people 10 steps back. People don't always understand. They see your persistence, and sometimes it looks like foolishness, like inability to read the room, like you're wasting your life chasing something that's never going to happen. But here's what they don't see. The psychological difference between people who quit and people who don't isn't about intelligence or realism. It's about a specific set of cognitive traits, belief systems, and neurological patterns that make persistence feel more natural than surrender. Tonight, I'm going to show you the psychology of people who never give up, what makes them different, why they can't quit even when it would be easier, and why this trait is both a superpower and a potential curse. And before we dive deep into applied psychology, subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments where you're from. David Kim was 32 years old and had been rejected by publishers 47 times when someone finally asked him, "Why haven't you given up yet?" His novel had been turned down by every major publisher, most with form rejection letters. He'd spent 4 years writing, revising, querying. No success, just rejection after rejection. "I don't know how to give up," David answered honestly. "I've tried to let it go. I can't. Something in me won't allow it." What David was experiencing wasn't stupidity or delusion. It was a specific psychological profile characterized by what researchers call grit. But grit is just the label. The underlying psychology is more complex and more interesting. Dr. Angela Duckworth's research on grit identifies it as a combination of passion and perseverance toward long-term goals. But what creates grit? Why do some people have it while others don't? The first factor is what psychologists call internal locus of control, the belief that your actions determine outcomes rather than external forces or luck. Dr. Julian Rotter's research shows that people with strong internal locus of control persist longer in the face of failure because they believe continued effort will eventually produce different results. David had this trait intensely. When publishers rejected his work, he didn't interpret it as the universe telling me I'm not meant to be a writer. He interpreted it as, "I haven't found the right publisher yet," or "My manuscript isn't quite ready yet." The rejection was feedback, not fate. People who give up easily often have external locus of control. They interpret failure as evidence that external forces are against them, that they're unlucky, that it's not meant to be. If outcomes are controlled by external factors, effort is pointless, so they quit. The second factor is what Dr. Carol Dweck calls growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through effort rather than being fixed traits. People with growth mindset see failure as information about what to improve, not as evidence of inherent limitation. David didn't see the rejections as proof he couldn't write. He saw them as evidence he needed to improve his craft, refine his query letter, better understand the market. Each rejection became data for optimization, not confirmation of inadequacy. People with fixed mindset interpret failure as proof they lack the necessary talent. "I tried and failed, therefore I don't have what it takes." This makes quitting feel rational. Why continue if you've proven you're not capable? The third factor is tolerance for delayed gratification. Dr. Walter Mischel's famous marshmallow experiments showed that ability to delay gratification predicts long-term success. But delayed gratification isn't just about willpower. It's about how your brain processes future rewards. Brain imaging studies by Dr. Samuel McClure show that people who can delay gratification have stronger activation in the prefrontal cortex, rational planning, relative to the limbic system, immediate emotional rewards. They can maintain motivation for distant goals because their brain treats future success as genuinely rewarding, not just abstractly. David's brain could vividly imagine the future success, holding his published book, reading positive reviews, knowing he'd achieved his dream. That future reward felt real enough to sustain him through years of present difficulty. His prefrontal cortex kept his limbic system patient. People who quit easily often can't make future rewards feel real. The present difficulty is concrete and painful. The future success is abstract and uncertain. Their limbic system wins, demanding immediate relief from the discomfort of continued failure. The fourth factor is what psychologists call self-efficacy, belief in your ability to execute actions required to achieve goals. Dr. Albert Bandura's research shows that self-efficacy is built through mastery experiences. Successfully overcoming challenges builds confidence that you can overcome future challenges. David had built self-efficacy through years of writing. He'd completed a novel, something most people who say they want to write never do. He'd learned the craft, improved his skills, demonstrated to himself that he could do hard things. This created confidence that he could solve the current problem, getting published, even though he hadn't solved it yet. People who give up easily often lack this foundation of mastery. They haven't built evidence that they can overcome obstacles, so when faced with difficulty, they have no internal proof that persistence will work. The fifth factor is purpose beyond self. Dr. Viktor Frankl's research on meaning shows that people who connect their goals to something beyond personal benefit show dramatically higher persistence. When your goal serves others or fulfills a sense of purpose, quitting feels like betraying something larger than yourself. David believed his story needed to be told, not because he was arrogant, but because he'd never seen his particular experience reflected in literature, and he believed representation mattered. Writing wasn't just about personal success, it was about adding something valuable to the world. That made quitting feel morally unacceptable, not just personally disappointing. People who quit more easily often frame goals purely in terms of personal benefit. I want to be successful. I want to make money. I want recognition. When those rewards don't materialize, there's nothing else holding them to the goal. It's purely transactional. And failed transactions get abandoned. But here's the shadow side of never giving up. Sometimes quitting is the rational choice. Dr. Pierce Steele's research on goal pursuit shows that knowing when to quit failed strategies is as important as knowing when to persist. The difference between productive persistence and destructive stubbornness is strategic flexibility. David didn't keep doing the exact same thing for 4 years. He revised his manuscript 7 times, changed his query approach multiple times, studied successful authors' paths, sought feedback, and implemented it. He was persistent on the goal, but flexible on the method. Destructive stubbornness looks like doing the same thing repeatedly, expecting different results, refusing feedback, doubling down on failed strategies, letting the goal consume everything else in life, persisting from ego rather than genuine belief. Productive persistence looks like maintaining goal commitment while adapting approach, seeking feedback, and implementing it. Balancing goal pursuit with other life areas, persisting from purpose rather than fear of failure. David's manuscript was finally accepted by a small independent publisher on his 48th query. The book didn't become a bestseller, but it got published, got positive reviews, found its audience, and David started his second novel immediately, carrying forward the psychological traits that had gotten him through the first. The psychology of people who don't give up isn't about being unrealistic or stubborn. It's about believing you control outcomes through effort, seeing failure as feedback, not fate, tolerating delayed gratification, building self-efficacy through mastery, connecting goals to purpose beyond self. These traits aren't distributed equally. Some people develop them through childhood experiences, supportive environments, early success building confidence. Others never develop them, not because they're weak, but because their environment didn't cultivate these particular psychological patterns. If you're someone who can't give up on your goals, understand you have a psychological profile that's relatively rare and extremely valuable. Your internal locus of control, growth mindset, delayed gratification tolerance, self-efficacy, and sense of purpose create persistence that most people can't sustain. But also understand, Persistence without strategic flexibility is just stubbornness. Make sure you're adapting your approach, seeking feedback, staying connected to reality while pursuing your vision. And if you're someone who struggles with persistence, it's not a character flaw. It's a specific set of psychological traits you didn't develop, but they can be cultivated. Build mastery through small challenges, practice delayed gratification in low-stakes areas, connect goals to purposes beyond yourself, develop growth mindset by reframing failure as feedback. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily smarter or more talented. They're the ones who didn't quit when everyone else would have. Not because they're special, but because their psychology makes quitting feel impossible. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It's very important for us to know the truth. Be honest in the comments, leaving creative suggestions so we can improve the quality of our content more and more. Comment where you're from, check out the video on the screen. I'm sure you'll like it. See you in a few seconds. We are Applied Psychology, and this is our contribution. Subscribe.